Well, it's a different kind of amphibious aircraft. That is, it works the same way as any amphibious aircraft. Takes off of land, takes off of water, does it all pretty well. But this is a trike on floats, and on amphibious floats at that. We're talking to Michael Percy today, and he is from
Sea and Sky Incorporated in Fort Walton Beach, Florida.
Just down here in Florida, a little bit up in the north part of the state, and over toward Louisiana, I think, a little bit, right?
That's right. We're up in the Panhandle, Destin, the beautiful beaches of the Emerald Coast, closer to New Orleans than Orlando, but we're that far around the bend.
Now, we know these floats from some time ago as the Crocker floats.
Right.
And that was a Canadian project, as I recall.
Correct.
And you acquired this from the fellow behind Crocker, whose name eludes me right at the moment.
Right. Yeah, that was JP.
JP, right? That was his initials he always used.
Yep.
And so you now have the production of the float and the trike package?
The entire, yeah. We got involved with JP back in 2006 and took his airframe and started making it work for saltwater and for student training.
Yeah, up there in Canada, all they got is a lot of fresh water, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
And it's a different animal to prepare for salt water.
It sure is.
Yeah. The corrosive effects of salt water are pretty significant. Give me a couple of points of things that you would have done to make that workable. Saltwater operations, I mean.
Sure. Well, as we got to using it for flight training, using it in salt water every day, anything that turned orange needed to be addressed. So
that's pretty simple. Like that stuff you put in your teeth to find out why you didn't brush well.
Right.
That works.
So anything that was ferrous steel, we started redesigning to where we could do it out of either powder-coated aluminum or titanium.
Yeah, I'm looking down here at this forward strut that is securing the nose of the floats to the aircraft, and that looks like titanium, is it?
That is not. That's
just painted to look like it?
That's aluminum. No, it's aluminum, and most of the structure of the aircraft is aluminum.
Okay.
And that does great in the salt water. In fact, there's pontoon boats that have unpainted aluminum, and that's how they are, and that's how they work.
And that works fine even with repeated applications in the water?
Exactly.
Excellent.
Yep.
Excellent. Yep. How does the engine fare in this situation? And the one reason why I'm asking is I see what I'm guessing is a protective cover underneath your feet.
That's right.
Spanning between the floats down there. Is that to prevent salt spray from getting up into the engine parts, or what's its purpose?
It is. There's several factors that keep the spray off and make this work well in the water. One is the float design itself. It's got a spray rail on the inside edge.
Yeah, a little.
So it
a
really,
piece that hangs down below the end of the float, right?
That's right, yeah.
Directs the float water backward?
Yeah, it keeps the spray going out to the sides and really stops any from coming up this way.
Okay.
The little bit of spray that you could get in some really choppy conditions, and we have experience in these in a lot of chop and even open ocean conditions, launching and recovering from ships and hoisting back on board. And even in those rough conditions, with this spray guard here, this just keeps the passengers' feet dry, and the engine fares really darn well. We found the right anti-corrosive stuff to use on it, so we have no problems living in a saltwater environment, and then even storing the aircraft outdoors. These are made to stay outdoors, folded up just like on the trailer there, and they fare well year after year.
One of your customers did pretty well yesterday at the Sun and Fun Splash-In, I understand. What happened there, Mike?
He did. Well, he won first place, as I expected him to, based on what we've done other years.
And what kind of things did they do that they award first place for?
That was the fastest aircraft taking off from the water.
To leave the water, though. The amount of time on the water, is that right?
Right.
Before it leaves the water.
The quickest takeoff. Again, so with this wing, the biggest wing, so that we can take the biggest payload, biggest passengers, and still come off in a really quick amount of time. This gives us a cruise of 55 miles an hour.
Okay.
We can get 60 out of it, but 55 is a real nice hands-off
So that's
cruise.
a comfortable position for you just to be sitting in about like this.
That's the no-effort position. If you just want to cruise along 50 miles an hour, then you don't have to do anything.
Now, you're also training in this aircraft, and I know that because I'm familiar with these instructor bars back here.
Yes.
Which are for the person in the aft seat, in this case an instructor in the aft seat,
yes,
who could reach up here or reach up to here, but it may not give you all the control you need. So you add this part, which can be removed. You can see it's removable here, and it's got components that allow it to come off.
That's right.
But that allows the instructor to have a good amount of control. But what about things like throttle or steering?
Sure. We've got rear seat steering right here and rear seat throttle. This is the instructor throttle, and then we've got rear seat mag switch is over here, so the
so he
instructor can shut
he
down.
can kill the engine too if he needs to.
Quickly if he
Excellent.
needs to. Exactly.
So on a trike, you use a foot throttle. That's a common thing to do. There's always a hand throttle as well once you're up and stable in flight. But while you're taking off, your hand's got to stay on the control bar, so you have to use foot throttles. That's why you would have two foot throttles. All right, now we're overlooking at a demonstration model which is sitting on a nice bit of carriage here. The floats are sitting up in the air. This allows Michael to put the gear up and down for us. So we're going to see how that is. So far right now it's as though we landed in the water. You're getting to the beaches right ahead, let's imagine, and you're going to want to get the gear down so you can taxi right up on the beach.
That's right.
What are you going to do?
Okay, so I'm going to press this release here, which is protected from your passenger's foot. They couldn't get their foot in there to accidentally give you a gear release. So with that released, watch your hands there, because that's coming up. Now I'm going to let the gear drop, and they drop and lock into place.
Pretty straightforward.
I'm going to give it a tug here.
Is this your suspension for the wheel here?
That is.
Okay.
That is.
Nice and simple. I like it. Okay, let's go the other way now.
Give a tug and see that they're down and locked.
Okay, and that's so you know they're secure now. They're not going to go anywhere even with water pushing on them.
That's right.
Okay.
Now to bring them back up again, I'm going to press this release cable, then pull on the top of this stick. Up they come. Now they're up and locked.
Boy, that didn't look like that was too hard at all. So very
Walk up front, stand and fish off the front if you like.
Can you really? You can stand all the way to the front of this thing?
You can walk all the way to the front, all the way to the back, and even with the weight of a 912 on there, these floats have enough buoyancy that two average-sized guys can be standing on the back of the floats with the 912 on there, and you still have reserve buoyancy where you're not gonna tip over.
How is the airplane offered to the public then? Is it coming out as an LSA or ELSA? Or?
It's an SLSA. We've produced all the SLSA versions since 2009. July 2009 we got the first one out, and they've been going to flight instructors and private owners around the country and several around the world now, and they're as a turnkey kit ready to go.
Sure, I'm guessing you've got an international audience for this because a lot of resort destinations like to operate some kind of a vehicle like this. Give the tourist rides, and in those countries there's different rules so they can do things that we can't do here, but that's neat. So you're doing a lot of training with these things, and that's cool. But you told me you've trained some unusual people, and that itself was its own story. Who are we talking about here?
Sure. Well, we train the FAA to fly weight shift land and weight shift sea in these aircraft.
And does that mean you're the guy that does that? How does that all work? I mean, it's FAA. They're the bosses, right?
Yes and no. As when light sport came about and these new categories and classes were established, there wasn't a big infrastructure on the public side or on the government side.
They didn't know how to fly this thing.
They didn't know how, so they hired some people in from outside. But of course, they needed ongoing training and recurrency training. So we submitted for and won a contract with them because we are able to provide weight shift land and sea, so we cover all the bases.
Sure, right.
And flying from the water in coastal conditions, we're able to fly in smooth, steady, laminar air all day long. Whereas typical inland flight training, it gets really bumpy in the middle of the day, and so you lose a bunch of training time there just waiting for the thermals to calm down.
Sure. So you're in a coastal condition. We talked about you being in the North Panhandle of Florida, over towards some of the other states there. We've got a good location for doing that. You train the FAA.
Yes.
And yet they come and give you the rating so that you can train the FAA. It's kind of an interesting story. You probably have to learn more about that. We don't want to go into it all, but... All right, so we're looking at this rig. This is a two-place rig, obviously, when you do training it. You have a single-place version of this as well?
Yes. Yep, we've got a single place. It's a true ultralight. Falls under the Part 103 regulations.
Right, you get a little more weight for that, don't you? So
we do. We get a 60-pound allowance for floats, and so it's legal under Part 103 ultralight regulations, so no pilot license or medical is required for that. And we have that at a remarkable price. It's $20,000, and it's just a scaled-down version of this with all the retract capability and a strong engine, which makes it have still an excellent climb rate for a pilot up to about 250 pounds. We use the MZ201.
Okay, and that gives you enough power, huh?
Yeah, and that's 40 horses, and then we also have an optional upgrade. That's the Hearth F23. It takes it up to 50 horsepower, and with that, it's just really a rocket.
I'll bet in a single-place vehicle. We normally don't do a lot of pricing stuff because you may be watching this video years after this, and so those prices can change, but most people know that an amphibious seaplane is a pretty expensive proposition. Floats alone for a Cessna 182 or something are $100,000. Just the floats, amphibious floats. What basic price do you have on a rig, kind of like the one we looked at before, 912, the whole bit? Ballpark estimate that people could just see the difference.
Sure. Top of the line with the 912S, 100 horsepower, currently $52,000, which is remarkable.
That's a very low price. Those prices are subject to change, but we thought we ought to do it just to give you a perspective. So we've done a lot, but there's a lot more that people want to know if they have any interest at all in this kind of thing, and I would think there'd be plenty. Where do they go on the web to find you, Michael?
www.flyamphib.com. Flyamphib.com.
Pretty straightforward. Flyamphib.com. I have not flown this yet, but we're both Floridians here, so we're going to have to change that some near point in the future. You're good enough for FAA, you're good enough for me. So we'll come up and do that. I'll have that information. We'll have news and other stuff available on bydanjohnson.com or bydanjohnson.com.